Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm having a lovely Sunday. How are you?
I am doing really well too. I'm just here in the beautiful sunroom of the Chamberlain Inn in Cody, Wyoming, where I'm not staying, and they're kind enough to let me use their beautiful, yeah, like parlor rooms for writing and Zoom interviews. Apparently, this is my first one here. So,
Amazing.
and I just want to show you behind
I'm in
me
my bedroom. Ooh.
horses.
So beautiful.
And appropriate for us.
Always.
So you're in your bedroom, which looks very rustic.
In my bedroom. This is my, you can see the nice insulation placed here probably in 1972 in between the cracks in the logs. Our cabin is otherwise one room. So this is my where I conduct all my business from.
Very professional.
Very professional. I'm always in bed.
Oh, this is very
Always.
professional, by the way. This is a very professional conversation.
I figured. I've got my shoulder pad power suit just like ready for a quick change.
Okay, perfect. You might need that, honestly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
My flow
Kesia,
chart.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you and what are your superpowers?
Right. I am half Japanese Canadian, half British Canadian. I grew up in British Columbia, so-called British Columbia, on various traditional territories. And I currently live on Giksan territory in a place known as the Kispiox Valley in sort of central northern BC. It's extraordinary. I moved here to kind of homestead, see what happened. I moved up with my mother several years ago and we bought a chunk of land and we've been playing around with a lot of different concepts around small farming, regenerative agriculture, and just like doing what we want. So we've got a little farm interface that's like got my horses and her cows and pigs, and it's a chaotic mess all the time, but it's been an amazing arena for like diving deep, learning a lot about myself and the world. I'm also a writer. I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I also practice and sometimes teach Key Aikido. That's been something that's been present in my life for most of it. And I work in food security. I work in Indigenous sovereignty and food security in our little region within an umbrella of like radical conservation work and community empowerment. So I do all kinds of stuff. I just recently remembered that I never graduated from high school. So that's my like fun fact I've been sharing with everyone. Like, you don't need school, you can just do what you want. And so far it's really been an incredible ride. And the horses, which is actually how you and I met, have been my main guides, teachers, and ass whoopers through most of my adult life.
Yes. Thank you for that amazing introduction. And clearly, there are, as we've found out, since I actually connected with you through my YouTube channel because I had some video about horses and someone put a link to listen to your horse, of which you are part of the team. And then I stalked you and found your website and was like, this girl is an amazing writer. I love her aesthetic. I love her spirit. And I guess the rest is history. So,
the happiest stalking incident thus far in human history.
not all stalking incidents are good, it turns out. Some are. Some are. Okay, so I mean, I don't even know where to get started. I think maybe right now what's calling to me, I want to hear you talk about what Key Aikido is, and maybe getting into something that we were recently talking about of like, the difference between knowing a discipline and doing that and having that kind of segmented off section of your life, and then what it looks like to practice it like actually in relationship with the world. As we would say in yoga, right? There's like, you don't just do yoga on the mat. What about off the mat? So the floor is yours.
Sure. Key Aikido translates to, Ki is the life force energy that we all have. It's also like QI Ki in other Asian languages, or I don't know much about prana and those more yogic traditions and concepts, but I have been told that it's pretty much a similar, it's a slightly different definition of a similar thing or the same thing. So Aikido is the way of harmony, or the way of the art of peace, depending on how you translate it. And it's a relatively new martial art, began in, I think, the earlier decades of the 1900s, actually, through our teacher O Sensei, or Ueshiba Sensei, who was in my view, a crazy mystic old man with a long wispy beard, who did all kinds of weird things, including moving to the north of Japan to raise horses, which is actually what I've done, and was kind of like probably a little bit culty, and like very much in tune with sort of like Shinto nature states that most people who studied with him had no frickin' clue what he was talking about. There's a lot of poetry and essays from his mind that people like to still try to understand. So he was kind of like a crazy internet guru of his time. Yes. And I make it sound really crazy, which is actually it can be a very practical martial art, but it is based in the understanding of this energy that moves through us all. It is using that to explore conflict, and it's moving through conflict in a creative way. At least this is my experience of it. There's many different schools of Aikido. I only practice one, and the one I practice is from a very particular lineage and has its own reasons for why it is the way it is. Other Aikido you might see like Steven Seagal doing, it's a lot more just like grunt and throw and hurt the other guy. Whereas the Aikido that I do is more interested in how do we meet the conflict, soften into it, and change the direction to create something that neither of us could have done without the other. So the conflict itself is very generative. And for this reason, we don't call our art of Key Aikido a martial art. It's more of a philosophy or a way of life that we can practice on the mat with partners. And we spend a lot of time developing an awareness of this key energy that we talk about, and finding ways to locate it in our bodies and gradually feel it in our bodies, feel it coming from others, and interact with it as a thing rather than just an idea or an imaginary substance. It's actually something you start to feel and embody and experience in daily life.
Yes.
So I don't know if I've made any sense there with what Aikido is.
You've made a lot of sense, and I'm gonna keep going, and because you really touched on something that interests me a lot, which is, and something I've been talking with you about a lot, with a lot of people who I'm in relationship with, which is, I was raised in this very, and it's American, it has to do with being female, it has to do with a lot of things, but this very people pleasing sort of culture and paradigm that's like avoid conflict at all costs. and, keep it unconscious, essentially, repress that shit. And, when we do that, I think it ends up coming out sideways. I think it's kind of inevitable in a way. And so I'm like living this whole new awakening of going into conflict and realizing that there is that maybe that is actually the most peaceful and loving thing that we can do. And so it's really interesting that you use the word conflict and, creating this whole other sort of scenario that could have never happened if you weren't willing to go into it. So can you talk more about that and maybe even give like some practical real life examples or whatever comes?
Yeah. Yeah. So this does speak to the second part of your question, which is like, how do we pull these things into regular life? Because, Aikido as an art, it's like you show up to class, you put on your kit, you wear the funny pants that look like a big skirt, and you just like awkwardly do stuff that you're not very good at for like 9 to 15 years. And then and then eventually you've developed enough technique that you can like fling people around and have fun. So that's Aikido on the mat. And that's what thousands and thousands of people around the world do. Bringing it into life, and in particular into conflict with other human beings, is, in a way, we're kind of on our own. In a way, it's like you go to class, you embody these principles, and then you see how you start acting. Some of it's spontaneous and some of it you have to kind of work through. But so I'm British and Japanese, so I am deeply conflict adverse. Like, we are like, avoid that shit at any cost.
Yes.
Yeah. So and yet I think what Aikido has done is it's made me so much braver. It's made like all the smaller conflicts seem really meaningless, because I have stood in a big room in front of my entire federation and had 8 giant men running at me at random for whatever 2 minutes, and I've like dealt with each of them in turn, not necessarily well, not necessarily gracefully, but I got through it. And I can always know that about myself when I'm facing some like I don't want them to be mad at me or whatever. Be like, come on, like, you've done much more than this already, so pull up your pants. You can probably handle this.
I just want to say you are a black belt, correct?
Yeah, I have 3 black belts in Key Aikido in my federation, which is, it sounds impressive, and I just want to say it's also like all relative to like
I'm impressed.
a lot of things. People are impressed, and then the next thing they say is, oh, you could probably kick my ass. And I say, probably not, because that's not what I'm trained to do. I'm trained to not let you kick my ass.
Ooh, big distinction.
So I could talk forever about how this affects life and conflict.
Good. I think people could learn a lot from it. And this is just one of many conversations I hope to have with you. So if this one is about that, like, it's exactly what we're here to be talking about. So go.
We'll see what happens, and just like jump in anytime, and we'll switch directions and go somewhere else, because I'm into that. Aikido, even before you get into actual like one-on-one attacky doing things to each other, you learn how to center yourself in your 1 point, your hara. So if you tense all of the muscles in your abdomen for a sec, there's a place in the middle that you cannot reach. It is a place that is no place. It's a place that can't be touched on the inside. And it's a couple inches below your belly button and right in the middle of you. And that's your 1 point. So we learn how to center ourselves there. We say, put your mind there, which essentially means, I don't know what it means. It's just something we have to learn how to do over time.
Yes.
But it's like, get your attention out of here and get it down in here.
So
and
embodiment in a way too.
Yeah, basically get in your body, but get right in the center of your gravity and your power, because that's actually just physiologically how we move, where we move from. So even just this, having this ability to, well, it's like, okay, now we have the language for it, right? It's like grounding, it's embodiment, it's, you know, these different things that we have a lot of different access points into now. And those are all really useful for dealing with life, as many of us know. For some reason, the thing that's actually coming to mind the most right now is that I actually hesitate to say this because I don't actually have data, and I don't.
Just go there.
I have a lot of, okay, so I've got a lot of privilege that has made this possible.
Yes.
But I have walked through my life as a young woman in modern Western society with very, very, very little negative energy from men. I'm talking like not just the worst shit not happening, but very, like, no disrespect, no stalking, no catcalling, no, like virtually nothing has happened to my person. It doesn't mean I haven't been in dicey situations. I've walked alone in the night through places that maybe I shouldn't, and I'm glad that I escaped. Because the reason why I hesitate is, like, I could just be really lucky. This could not be Aikido. We don't know. We'll never know.
And you're aware of that, and you're saying that. So thanks for setting that foundation. And
yeah, it's not like if bad things happen to you, it's because you didn't have Aikido. No, nothing like that. It's just an observation I've experienced. I've been able to move through life with less conflict coming at me. I think largely because since I was very young, I was trained to walk a certain way, to be in my body in a certain way, and to essentially not present as a target, but also not like an over projection of confidence that kind of invites a fight.
yes,
it's just this like very, very neutral state I can slip into. I can almost be invisible, or I can tone it up if I need to. And it's a neat experience. It translates to less conflict coming to me.
yes. So it's almost like you drop into this like frequency, if you will, or if this being was like a radio dial, like you're on a channel where, that's not to say that might not come, but you're like just on a more kind of peaceful vibe, peaceful channel. I'm interested, if you had to describe what that walking is like, what that walking in that is like, how would you describe it? Because I'm trying to imagine you on these streets. I'm like, what is that vibe? What channel is she on?
It's not fancy, it's not, I'm not plugging into the divine or anything. I'm just in my body. I'm balanced over my one point, moving from there. So I'm not leaning forward. I'm not leaning back. I'm not tense. So another principle in Key Aikido is completely relax, which doesn't mean flop like a sack of potatoes. It means only use the muscles that you need to do the task that you're doing. So if I'm walking down the street, my neck isn't tense, my shoulders aren't up, my hands aren't clenched, I'm just using my legs to move my body.
Yes.
Everything else is pretty relaxed.
So a lot of body awareness and a lot of this idea. My older brother would be all about that, the electrical engineer that he is, because it's all about efficiency then, is what I'm hearing.
Basically it is. That's the other thing, is people are like, oh, you must be so fit because you do Aikido. I was like, no, like a lot of the high grades have pot bellies. Like, we're so efficient. We're not burning calories.
We're too efficient. I like that. I like this.
So so there's a lot less conflict that comes to me. There's a lot less that I experience as conflict also, because I'm not already feeling scared, tense, victimized. A lot of stuff can just be dealt with. Like, this is another random example, but yesterday I was driving a couple 100 kilometers to drop a side of beef, or full beef, off at the butcher to hang that we just slaughtered in the morning, and I realized my wheel sounded a little funny. I stopped in at Cal Tire, all of the lugs on my rear wheel were finger loose. Like, they're like, I hope you didn't drive highway speeds. I said, you bet your boots I did for a couple 100 kilometers. So I'll have events like that feel like I could either go, holy fuck, like I nearly died, or I could go, oh, whatever, like the universe saves me. And
Right.
instead I'm somewhere in between where I'm like, thank God I got, like, we call it moving your mind. My mind was moved. Something alerted me. There was a disturbance in the force.
Yes, intuition.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's logical. It's like I heard a weird sound. I kicked my tire. It seemed weird.
Right.
I overruled my desire to not make a fuss or take extra time. And I pulled in and they fixed it. And that's it. We never know what might have happened or might have not happened after then. But these little moments of your mind is moved. I'm not going to walk down that alley tonight. You never get to know why, but nothing happens.
Yes.
That kind of thing. In terms of like actual conflict, I find it really complicated because when you're on the mat practicing, this is where it is hard to translate. The person on the mat with you, this is a consensual relationship. You both chose to step literally into the arena, you know, to do this thing together and like study it together. So when you're in your daily life, a lot of it feels, and maybe cosmically it is consensual, maybe cosmically we did choose to do this with people, but a lot of the time that conflict feels really non-consensual and it feels like you don't have a choice, and it's really easy to slip into either victim or perpetrator. And I think the best thing it's ever done for me is just reminded me that there is a way through this. Like Aikido doesn't skip it. It doesn't like ascend and get over it. It goes through it. And I am reminded that even if I don't find it today, then I can go back and I can think about the details and I can think about where did I not sense the energy? Where did I tense instead of relax? Where did I get ahead of myself? Where did I not have a clear picture of what I wanted to create? You know what? So I can deconstruct my messy human experience and know that probably there was a way I could have gone through it more smoothly.
Yes.
That said, like, do we need smoothness? I think the best thing, like what I think I began with, was it's just given me the bravery to be like, it's not going to kill me. Like my body thinks it is, because my body is deeply conflict adverse. And I know folks of varying degrees of this, and probably a lot, like if I feel it this much, I know a lot of people feel it more.
Yes.
Fight or flight, freeze or fawn, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
But I think the Aikido training has given me that beat between the thing happening and the response, where I can go, this is a choice. I can go this way and bless me, that's fine. Or I can find the energy today to do something else.
That is, this is a choice. And another thing that I like what you said, and it makes me think of kind of the difference between these two words, is it sounds to me like it's like the goal is to enter into the state of like ease, as in like relaxedness, like efficientness, like these things. That doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. Like we have this idea of like, if things aren't easy, then we're not doing it right. And I think that that's a really toxic paradigm.
You hit the nail on the head. And okay, I'll tell you a little story.
Yes.
Third Dan black belt. This is the last actual test I get to do in front of the Federation. We've got everyone there, all the highest grades. I've flown to England for this. We do a week of training and then I grade at the end. I've been preparing for this for, I don't know, years, right? My dad is my teacher and I represent him in the Federation. So
no pressure.
It's no pressure, but pressure. And I just really want to do well. This is my last test ever. My second dan was, I did not love it. It was, I felt like they just like let me have it. Like, here it is, now you can earn it. So this was like, I wanted to shine. I wanted to do it well, everything. I get up there and I start having my first test. So they test your ki, they test your body. And Sensei Margaret, who's like my hero, she's the leader of the Federation, she's testing me and my heart's pounding and I can like barely, I'm like burp breathing. And my mind's going, you're okay, like you're just like, these are people that love you, they want you to win, like this is a test, this is a game, like for frick's sake. And my brain's just like like bombs are falling. So like full on freak out response. And the little quiet voice in me that's always there is like, okay, well, just stick with it, like, you know, it'll get better soon, don't worry, like you'll get into the groove and then you won't be scared anymore. And so, you know, the next 10 minutes passed and my heart's still pounding out of my chest and I still like can't hear things, my ears are ringing. And the whole freaking test went, and I think it's maybe like 45 minutes at that stage, I was trembling and gasping for air the whole way through. And at some point in that whole ordeal, my brain went, oh, maybe it doesn't get better.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the point.
Goosebumps.
So my brain thought, yeah. I thought, I will prove myself by becoming calm. That is the whole point of Aikido, and that is the whole point of my training and the whole point of this test. No, the point of the training and the point of the Aikido and the point of the test is do it anyway. It won't kill you.
Dude, that's the whole point of life, I think.
I got through the test. Exactly. And I got through the test and I sat with it just like vibrating, high sensation, which I have since learned to realize is a wonderful thing and not something I should be avoiding.
Yes.
And I realized that I had almost missed the most important part of the whole thing and all of life, which was this like bright, beautiful, excruciating sensation of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And I'm stealing that from whoever, Glennon Doyle or whoever says it all the time, or maybe it's just a
is it? I mean, it's the same at least as her saying, I mean, and that's what I was thinking during this too. In the background, I'm hearing Glennon say, we can do hard things, because this is huge. I really feel like this has been, you know, something that I have never done Key Aikido. Like I've, you know, had some experience with yoga and sort of like metaphysical philosophy and like all of these sorts of things. And they're in the background of all of these, like there's this idea, and I very much had it even, you know, until very recently, I would say, of like, well, I must just be missing the point or something's wrong with me, or I'm not doing it right, or I haven't gotten it because why does it feel so hard? And I think it's in Untamed. And Glennon is, you know, whoa, I just got a pop-up about a gift from Zoom. Okay. I don't want it right now. This is my gift. It's like, you know, she goes to rehab after being a raging alcoholic for however long. And that's what she says to everybody. She's like, you know, I'm starting to realize that the reason I drank is because everything feels so fucking hard. And so I think something's wrong with me. And this lady tells her afterwards, she's like, no, like the whole secret is you realize that when things feel hard, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It means that you're doing life right. And she's like, okay. And I just think that, I mean, even if that was a lie, like telling ourselves that, I think is like a really good way to just fucking get through it. Like life is not easy. And yet we can find ease in how fucking hard it is. And that's what all these practices seem to be about, from what I can tell.
It's like the Buddhist paradox, the vows of like, you know, beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. suffering is endless, I vow to end it.
Yes.
Embracing this paradox of like, it's fucking impossible. I have to walk through fire, and I'm gonna anyway. Like, I'm just gonna do it and see what happens.
Here
Because
we
what's
are.
the alternative?
Yeah. What is the alternative? Because I'm pretty sure from everything that at least the paths I'm on, like, okay, the alternative is death, and then I'm just going to be reborn again. So, like, I have to face this at some point. And, that's another thing too. And like right now, as you know, and I go through my phases, and right now I'm like very obsessed with Glennon Doyle. So she's a big frame for me right now. But I do think that also part and parcel with this is like, and I have people very, very close to me who have struggled from addiction to like opioids and heroin and alcohol. And I'm sure probably most of us do in this day and age, and perhaps all of human history. But there's this idea of like, if we feel the full spectrum of emotions, is like the shitty side of it, like that means that something's wrong with us, like, because, and I think this is where like positive psychology and self-help and this whole like you create your own reality stuff, which I do believe is true on one level, but I also think it can be really toxic when you're not allowed to feel this whole certain half of the spectrum of emotions. And then when you do feel it, instead of being like, oh, this is it, this is the hard stuff, this is the good stuff, you're like, oh no, something's wrong with me, I need to go numb with whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you said, it is going to happen, and you're going to have half your toolbox missing.
Yes.
If you only engage with the stuff you consider good.
Yeah.
But like the stuff we consider bad is beautiful.
Yeah.
Grief is one of my favorite emotions. Right. Grief is cleansing and letting go, and just like making room, period. Making space, which actually connects us to the divine, right? Anger gives us boundaries. It gives us the energy to create boundaries. And fear keeps us from dying a lot of the time.
Yes.
So I don't want to not feel those things.
Right. These are big communicators that keep us in our power then. So if we cut ourselves off from those, we're really easy to control. And we're not living, we're not like really easy to control, because you just hit one that speaks to me right now. Like, oh, I'm not ever allowed to feel angry. So I'm going to repress and ignore that. And then I'm going to live life with no boundaries. And how's that working out? Not well. Not well.
Not well.
So talk to me a little bit about this high sensation stuff and high sensation being good.
Yeah, so I'm immersed in a lot of Carolyn Elliott's work right now, as I know you are too.
Author of Existential Kink. I will link.
That's
to
right.
The kink.
Link to the kink. Deeply controversial, especially right now for various reasons. But largely what resonates with me about her work is kind of permission to do what I was doing anyway, which was I've already been aware of how much I get out of the gritty, hard, weird, and sometimes like bad, disgusting, wrong stuff. I was also highly aware of the fact that there's always paradox. So I already outed myself as an animal killer when I talked about the steer that I was taking to the butcher. But this whole practice for me of claiming responsibility for the food that I eat and the lives that I take, which are taken anyway, regardless of how you choose to see that or how you choose to live or eat. There is death and suffering that is inherent in imbibed in the food, in the chain that brings you your food. That's
we all gonna die. Also,
we all gonna die.
Just saying.
Yeah. So, and also being an animal lover, being an ex-vegetarian, and being surrounded by beautiful light being people who are really into animal communication and raising our vibes and like not doing shitty things, as well as being raised like sort of pseudo-Buddhist, which is like don't kill, and pseudo-Christian, thou shalt not kill. So actually reckoning with the death that happens anyway, and actually choosing to get literal blood on my hands has been an extreme deep dive for me into the very, like almost the core aspect of like death is bad, life is good.
Yes.
I need death to keep life going. Yep. How do I reconcile this? How do I reckon with it?
Yes.
So the only philosophy I have found that actually like helps me navigate that is one where everything is. And the only way to live through it with integrity is to look at all of it, to hold all of it tenderly, no matter how disgusting, wrong, bad, horrible, or beautiful, delicious, wonderful, sweet, and lovely. So the high sensation piece comes from the phrase, truth is sensational. And what I love about that is it takes philosophy and it brings it into our bodies.
Yes.
So if we can sit with an idea, a thought, a moment, a feeling, and feel it in our bodies, we get a lot more information about what it actually is and what we actually need to do in order to be with it or transmute it or drop it and do something else. So sometimes we can say a bad thing and have a huge sensation, or feel a bad thing or see a bad thing and have a huge sensation, and it makes us think we need to go away from it, block it out, and stop it.
Right.
But what if that sensation actually was almost neutral? You know, excitement and fear are incredibly similar in your body.
Yes.
And I had a recent experience where I was like really afraid about something, and then I thought, what if I just turned it? What if I just believed it was excitement? Would that change the way I interact with this feeling?
It's funny. So a few things. First of all, I think it was, there's this guy who wrote this like pretty famous metaphysical book that's called Conversations with God. And, you know, he basically channeled, but it's exactly what you just said. He starts thinking of like the message he gets from God is that fear is an acronym for feeling excited and ready. And so it's kind of funny like that you say that. And you know, I love how Carolyn Elliott puts it, because yeah, I think for both of us, and you're the one who introduced me to existential kink, and thank you. And I've introduced a lot of people to it, and I've talked about it a lot on my YouTube channel. And, you know, it's this idea of we came here as however you want to think of the fact that we're some kind of divine, immortal beings, and everything is that. And we came here to experience all of it, like all of it, not just the stuff that we would label good. And it really makes sense to me too, because this whole idea of like, okay, everything is love. And it's like, yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean only feel good feelings that we have been consciously and societally and culturally indoctrinated to associate as loving. If everything is love, that means slaughtering your cow can be love. That means getting screamed at that your father thinks you're a failure can be love. You know, that like you actually did come here to experience all of it. And again, it's like nobody said it would be easy, but somehow that knowing that there's a part of you, as Carolyn likes to say, some secret kinky part of you that can enjoy and love everything, that just for me brings some ease in the shit that we're taught is like unacceptable and so therefore like too hard to go through.
Absolutely. It also brings lightness and lightheartedness and this sort of quirky fun, like when we message each other about hard stuff, it's always this, like, we always catch ourselves, you know,
Yes.
like, oh, but I kind of love it. I just kind of love it. Obviously I do, because
I
it's
must
happening.
get off on it, you know, to some extent. And
Yeah.
it just, you're right. It lightens
Yeah.
it up, which is to say, again, even if it's totally wrong, it's a tool in the toolbox that feels like it works. Because if you stop taking something so seriously, you know, I think this is all that cognitive behavioral therapy is, from what I understand, is just some kind of reframe that allows you even the littlest bit to see that there might be another reality or another way to look at this. And so even that little
Yeah.
joke of like, oh, maybe there's a part of me that enjoys this, is like the glitch that allows for that like expansion or whatever.
Yeah. Something to just a little stick in the cog, something to just shift your habitual pattern of thinking. And it bears mentioning that, like, these kind of philosophies are very much, like you said, just a tool or a game. They are not necessarily going to come to your aid in times of actual horror and actual bad shit.
Yep.
So it's not meant to, like, make light of systemic and societal terror and violence. It's not meant to lessen anything, but it is meant to challenge us to reach wider, to go, okay, being a victim and denying these things that I hate isn't making them go away.
Yes.
And even though I am fully and completely, totally allowed and need to experience my victimhood and grieve what has been taken from me and grieve the harm.
Yes.
I also need, for, like, the sake of humanity, to have another option.
Yes. And the sake of your
a way to
sanity.
flip the script.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful way to put this. And yeah, I think it's important to, you know, I think, and I, you know, have that Capricorn sun energy and that crazy, like, achieving thing of like, okay, so as soon as I'm having a bad feeling, like, EK that shit, like existential kink that shit. And then it still can become like anything, when it just can become another way to avoid the bad feelings. Like, sometimes I will, like we already said, like, the whole point is that all of these feelings and sensations can be our teachers. And as soon as the idea is to rush out of it, like, you know, you're trying to avoid the hard stuff again. And so that's also to say that, like, if you've just been through something, or like, don't start trying to apply this to like the most traumatic, dark, terrible aspect that you've ever experienced, or generational, you know, trauma that you're carrying. Like, start with something easy, like how, you know, your best friend is annoying when they text you 30 times a day or something. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Keep it chill. Don't go off the deep end with this stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
My Taurus sun says, chill the fuck out, have a snack. You're all good.
Dude, it's coming
Take your
into
time.
Taurus season and it's almost your birthday.
I'm stoked. I'm going to just, like, relax even harder. I'm going to enjoy things even more now that I've gotten over my my guilt kink about how much what a lovely life I have and how much opportunity I have to experience that. I'm excited for Taurus season and all the slow, chill, pleasurable experiences maybe we're going to have.
I know, and of course we're both Libra rising. There's our big connection, among other things. I really liked the Channy, you've introduced me to basically everything good in my life. I don't know what I was doing before I met you. The Channy app, Channy Nicholas, is what's up. And I really liked the Taurus horoscope that she released today was really, really good. Just like, it's time to kind of go ahead and let yourself calm down and chill out.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, I'm really feeling that, and going to be also, it's so funny, right? Because as you know, I've been like struggling so much with like actually moving into my van and tearing myself away from my parents and all of my, 5 planets in my 4th house of family, like, and it's so interesting though, as I begin, it is coming Taurus season, like that reflection, and I begin to be like, feel that ease and of like what my life can be like. And, not that I don't still have all these things going on, it's just all of the things that I've actually desired to be doing when I'm not like closed in by all of these other things. And then and then it's like, you feel guilty, like there's already that thing of like, but life can't be this good, like that's not fair, like you need to make it hard again so that you can, it's like, okay, the hard times are going to come whether I like it or not, can I just allow myself
Exactly.
to revel?
There's I just had a million thoughts and then they just disappeared.
Welcome to Zoom.
Yeah, like we're so, in our culture, we're very much conditioned to being busy, being too busy, being busy even when we're trying to not be busy, and talking about how busy we are. And I think it's because, exactly, it's martyrdom, but it also gives us an excuse to not do the things that we're already overwhelmed, too overwhelmed to do. But it's this like cultural code, because it means, oh, I'm worthy because I'm busy. And I've been really breaking up with that for a while and trying to just be like super honest with people. I won't say I'm busy. I'll say, I don't want to, or how about this other time? Or, just trying to really disengage from normalizing busy and normalizing. So, and then we've got this whole self-care industry, and it's like, now you have one more thing to be bad at, not do enough.
Totally.
Whereas like really you could actually just like be experiencing whatever you're experiencing. The other thought I had was that when so this is a kind of a flip side of the high sensation thing, but most of us are used to, either just through the innocence and sort of social conditioning of that kind of busy, prove your worthiness culture that we live in, which is in itself traumatic and shitty, or in the like majority of humans that have experienced trauma in their lives or are currently experiencing it, our nervous systems tune to that level of activation.
Yes.
And so when we're given some reprieve, when we get into a healthy relationship, when we do get our van and we're like looking at the open road and like not drama every day, like when we get a chance to sit, we start cramming shit into those spaces, because it's actually terrifying to come out of the sort of dissociative state that allowed us to deal with all that overdrive. Right. You got to come through some really uncomfortable sensations in order to get down to your chill zone, which most people have never been at least since they were baby.
Right.
If even then.
Yeah.
So it's really important to recognize when you're like maybe actually sabotaging the rest and recuperation that you need, because it's so scary, because it's such an unknown state. That it's easier just to pop back into guilt, busy, whatever, make work.
Right. And there's
to-do list shit.
There's that quote, it always gets misattributed, so I'll put who it's really by in the about section. Some old white guy, some Renaissance philosopher.
Bless his soul.
Bless him. And but it's like mankind's greatest fear is to be in a room alone with himself. And I think that like I sense that a lot from my parents, and it's been, and our whole culture, and it's been very deeply ingrained in me, because I do think the busy thing also is like unconsciously, a way to avoid having to be alone with yourself. And all of the, like you said, uncomfortable layers that you go through. And also though, then that final bottom layer of like, wait, there is actually like sometimes like this place of just like total peace and rest and acceptance. And like, that seems really scary in a way too. Cause it's like, wait, so am I not needed? Like, did none of that, like the world doesn't need me to do all those things for it to keep turning? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Or like why you're like, no, I won't give up whatever sugar or wheat, because if that means that all of my crazy is fixed by this one simple thing, then all of that crazy will have been for naught.
right. Yeah. And I could have done the, yeah, I was just talking to my friend Jesse about this earlier. Like when I think about that, like again, with, close to home, my parents are such an example in so many ways, but I feel this from my dad a lot of like, I mean, the sugar thing and a lot of things, but for instance, he struggles with health issues and like that he's a doctor, by the way, a retired physician, but he doesn't want to admit that like his diet has contributed to all of these health problems that he's had. And I think part of it is that he feels like if he admits it now, then that embarrassment of like, well, I've been fucking up my life this whole time. But it reminds me of this, and I said this in my interview with Jesse too, this ancient Chinese proverb that's like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Like, you still have, but it's funny how people, and I feel like that comes a lot into a lot of fucked up political shit too, where people are like, well, if I admit racism is wrong now or global warming is real now, then I look like I've been a fucking idiot for the last. Sorry.
Or more so, everything will crumble. Reality,
Yes.
pull the thread and the whole sweater comes apart, right?
Yep.
And this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and why we create so many stories and why we create so much hurt and just keep perpetuating this shit outward, because we're so terrified, like you said, to be in a room alone with ourselves, to look in the fucking mirror.
Yep.
Because we don't believe we can love that worst shit, which is absolutely 100% part of us.
Yes.
Every horrible worst human impulse is in me.
Thank you. Amen. And in me, all of it.
And in you, all of it. So like I discovered this at first when I was trying to break away from traditional riding, which I came to very late in my life, of horses, for people that don't follow. Yeah. So I came into it as a late teen. So I hadn't been like indoctrinated as a child that riding horses in a particular way was normal. So I came into the scene and I found it appalling. The horses were in pain. They were telling me that, like, why were we riding around in this dingy arena doing dumb shit? I just wanted to be like with the love of my life, like in a field somewhere, like riding or not riding, I didn't care, like what, why are we doing this? This is terrible. There's like horses bleeding out of their mouths because some kids sawing on the bit, like just stuff, it was like a horror show to me. And my aunt, who I rode with, resisted my every question, my every desire to change things. And I recognized it even then, to my teenage credit. It was like, oh, frick. If she admits that what she's doing is abusive to this animal she believes she loves, then her story of herself as a good person starts to crumble.
Yes.
And if she's not a good person, then her whole worldview is suddenly in question.
Yep.
Like, it's not just like, oh, I could be nicer to the horses.
Yep.
It's like, it's like, if I admit this one thing,
yep,
then I'll have to look at everything. And I feel that in people. If I concede this one point, if I admit I'm wrong, or I admit I don't know what I'm doing, then the whole facade crumbles and everything falls apart. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want it to?
I know.
If it's that fucking delicate, why wouldn't you want it to crumble? Why wouldn't you want to start over?
And this is really good, dude. I'm really glad that we hit on this point. I mean, of course, not everyone is there. Like, you and I are constantly like, I want it to crumble. Like, what do I have to do for it to crumble?
Burn it to the ground.
Burn it down. So we can rebuild. but I think that that's really huge, because it goes just part and parcel with, you were always a bad and a good person. Like that was all always you. And just that whole thing of only accepting the part of ourselves, like having to tell that story where doing like abusing horses is okay, so that you can continue to only accept the good part of yourself. It's just doing ourselves and then everyone a disservice, because also what we're, subconsciously telling everyone is, don't show me the bad parts of yourself. Like hide that shit, because
you are out.
You are out. So that's this is really good. Well,
Yeah.
I think, we should probably wrap this up, because it's been a while and it's a long combo. And also, like, I guess I'm gonna get better at these, because I feel like the best stuff in like all of these I'm doing is at the end, which no one is probably watching all the way to. But you know what? We
Well, that's
will
what
watch it.
editing is for, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not editing things yet, so you can feel some resistance. Yep. Learning new things.
Mhm.
So I really hope that, I mean, I know that this is just one of our many conversations that we're always having, and I hope that it is one of many that we can have in recorded fashion, because you teach me a lot, and I feel like our dialogues always bring some pretty cool revelations, laughs, cries, what have you.
Right back at you, sister.
So you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will be talking to you soon.
Sounds wonderful.
Thank you
Stay
so
safe
much.
out there.
You
Or
too.
don't, whatever you get off on.
Yeah, ditto. Mwah.